my unique project is urban waterway design system for public spaces. As we often know, when designing a city or when planning a city, most people look at the city as probably establishing buildings, designing transportation system, maybe residential buildings, and maybe other financial district, or maybe dividing them into those kind of districts. But most people ignore the fact that public spaces around the city is very just as important as um, designing a transportation system or any other system. As a city, it should be designed for its people living in the city. Public spaces are used for various things, used for recreation, used for thinking, used for inspiration, even any thing associated with human health or human well-being. A public space can be used for that kind of identity. So in my case, I am designing a public space integrated with urban waterway system, by integrating the characteristics of what waterway system with public use and public space design. So as we all know, basically when designing public space or when proposing a public space, urban planners usually face basic oppositions, which is in terms of developers, in terms of government, or in terms of any other ambitious planner who try to maximize the use of space for anything that could just generate wealth, regarding or ignoring the use of the spaces or the city or the necessity of the city as a human based or pedestrian design based. But in order to reduce this risk of having this kind of conflict between the developers or ambitious urban planners with proposed green city or green botanical cities, there are some basic principles that should be taken into consideration, such as image and identity. Why is that space very important? Why was the history? Was the identity of the space? Why should it be preserved? What are the animal lives there? What's the history of the animal life? What's the history of the planting system? Some very unique species of plant may be built around the city or around the space that need preservation. So those are basic things that should be considered. Another is attraction destination. Is it touristic attractive? Is it economic attractive? Is it commercial attractive? Basic national importance or attractions that deem the public space very useful around the city. We also have public amenities. How accessible are humans to the public amenities? Your flexibility in design. The flexibility in design, how flexible can it? Does it entertain renewal action or refurbish or rehabilitative actions? Also seasonal strategy, how does it evolve during the hot and cold seasons? Accessibility, how accessible is it to neighborhoods and other zones in the cities? If accessibility is an option, it's also advisable to zone these public spaces and make them unique to its particular zone. Also, another important thing is connectivity, how connected it is to the city, even apart from even deciding to zone them into basic regions. The connectivity is also a very important role. And also central role management, how do you preserve the landscape, preservation of flora and fauna, preservation of public use activities, river, lakes, and any other natural features that might come as an historical feature or identity in the land. So basically, my project is integrating waterfronts with a public space or an activated public space, because public spaces are usually activated by either monument, history, walls. It could be anything activating public space. Anything that draws humans together is an activated, or any space that draws humans together rather is an activated public space. So in my case, integrating waterfronts with this kind of activated public space is very important, because waterfront or water bodies are are unique tourist attracting features in urban design. And just as unique as it is, it can be integrated with one another, whereby the history of a public space can also be amplified through the use of uh, water associative bodies. It could be artificial, it could be natural, depending on it. Living streams are basically artificial bodies or artificial wetland that are used, to amplify the visuals of the site in order to maybe regenerate lost animals, especially, or even regenerate lost plant that associated with water, or plant that grow around or water would can be regenerated. So while the benefit of artificial wetland, most of the times erosion control, in terms of erosion, in preventing landslide, displacing of Fiona. This artificial wetland helps in controlling the measure of that water quality management improvement, and also habitat, regenerative habitat, like I said before, I mentioned before, in education, in terms of research and other learning of human animal relationship, and also in terms of recreational activities, whereby bird watching, boats, or traveling, or sightseeing, basically sightseeing. And apart from that, there are basic famous challenges that could be involved in this case. Population increase, whereby the city expands. How do you manage it to keep the public spaces? That's a very great challenge. Fluctuation in social political needs, whereby government wants it, and then planners wants it, and then the humans want this, and disintegration between the needs of everybody living around the city. Also globalization, whereby there are discrepancy between cultural identity and cultural image, may create a kind of discrepancy in design, because the design won't be able to integrate with the needs of the users. So basically, I compared some basic example, Eskishare, which is a very good example, regenerative system from landfill area turned into a pedestrian inland waterway space. You could call it a square, but it's a city design for the pedestrian, and basically use electric transportation system, or any CO2 reducing machinery around the city to keep the space green. We have also Yangpu Police Space in China, which is at the coastal region. We have San Sebastian, which is also the coastal region. We have the Paris Plague in France. As an example, we have the Natal Square in Copenhagen. We have a Riverwalk in San Antonio, Texas. We have a Harbourfront in Oslo, Norway, and also Bashan Mokyo Park in Singapore, which is a very good example of a canal regenerated into a botanical public space, whereby humans can interact with nature, transforming the city or the space into ecological or hydrological, ecological, and recreational infrastructure. Basically, my proposed site will be the Istanbul Canal project. Of course, I won't design the whole canal. It's a region along the Kochi-Chekmede-Sasli corridor, and it's located right along the Eski Jadesi Road, and divided into 3 different zones. Basically, information about that. The essence of this is, since the project is designed to connect the Marmara Sea with the Northern Black Sea, creating a division between the European side, which initially is already Istanbul is divided into 2, which is European and Asia, and to create a 3rd division within the European side creates a kind of a identity discrepancy. But hopefully my project would keep the image intact, while also supporting the governmental use of the space. Basic urbanism feature in my project is in terms of education, in terms of commerce, tourism, sports, recreation, pedestrian accommodation, and traffic, also landscape, waterway management. So this is a basic map, and you can see the yellow line running across the map is Jadesi Road, and the circular dotted line is actually where the project will be located, close to the transportation system. Or however, the surrounding settlements, which include Bashache, in a little bit of Kuchuchek also maybe Avjila or Anaftokoi. The design aim basically is to unify the Anatovica Kuchuchakme Bashache along the Eastern Kakana region, designing a pedestrian public waterway system functioning as a garden or a square. Basically, the design objective is to provide a water-sensitive urban garden, also to create a kind of a cultural relationship between the two or multi spaces, to regenerate also the landscape along the Sazuzere corridor. As if you look at the Google image, you see that the landscape is quite dead, vegetative landscape rather is quite dead there. And then socioeconomic identity, bringing a kind of identity, even a new identity to the particular region due to the history of the division along the space. Also to replace industrialization with commercialization, as the place is basically industrial based. And this basically the topography of the land and the space, and how the valley will be located, the shape of the site, which marks the red line, and the blue line shows the hydrological direction of the water artificial wetland mapping and all. And then the project statistics in terms of ratio, green spaces, food court, jetty transportation system. We have the proposed commercial building, because that will be up to the government to decide. We have event spaces for dance or other cultural activity, also rain garden specifically for collecting rainwater and refurbishing them into kind of a pocket of wetlands that could enhance the visual of the place. Also parking in case of external operational, and then sports and recreation. So basically divided into 3 zones. We have the accessibility area, which is the existing space, and then the communism, which is the essence or the identity of the space, and then flexibility, which is prone to either expansion or reduction. And these are the functional diagram, and all this will be shown in the descriptive entries. And then in conclusion to my comparative analysis that I made between those examples, I drew some basic comparative analysis, which is cost efficiency, pedestrian accessibility, also hydrological, ecological, and recreational integration, also commercialization, and then diversification of transportation system. Each of them had different usage system, but I was able to draw that as a basic necessity for designing a kind of urban waterway public space. So it's the comparative analysis I made, and I divided them into sub variables, and that. So we move to basically the design report and compression. So the design report was compressed into this A3, the design aim, and also the design strategy in terms of hydrology, topography, project statistics, which I mentioned before, concept diagram, spatial diagram, and also functional diagram. These are just basic information about the project, which I have mentioned before. And then the site itself, the analysis of the site, the sun direction, and the wind direction, Arctic wind direction, the tropical wind direction, also the the continental wind direction. So the population of the site is basically, the area of the site is basically 17.34 hectares of land, and the population density around the settlement of Kuchuchekmeja is about 779,000, and then population density about 20.1 side in demography. So we move to basically the work program. This is basically the relationship matrix between the spaces. The spaces include the sports facility, the tourist attraction facility, open air markets, which is very good in terms of economic, and cafe, restaurant, bars, and in terms of food and public amenities. We also have drama and concerts, which is a space in terms of cultural activity or events. We have the metro station, which could be redefined in terms of flexibility. Also, parks, gardens, or rain garden, you may call that, or language, cultural, educational building, which will be expanded in the last view, and also the public settlements around the suburb. So the relationship matrix is basically this. The bubble diagram and the relationship interaction matrix shows how connected this are. If you can look, then the arrow pointing of how the river cuts across these spaces that are divided it into sub zones, as they were divided into zones. So basically, the design it will ensure it includes high pedestrian bridges for accommodation the transportation along the river, as the river intentionally is made for sea life transportation, whereby ships from the Black Sea will be able to connect directly to the Marmara Sea and reduce the transportation on the other end of Istanbul. And also in terms of commercialization, regeneration of landscape, the dead landscape system also improves or enhances what identity they already have there. In terms of ecological features along the river, the design of flood walls are placed in order to reduce water seepage into the existing soil layer, either preventing contamination from either the soil, the existing soil, to the river, or vice versa. So the flood walls keeps the river and also reduce erosion or landslides in this case. And in terms of reduced CO2 emission, it's limited. The transportation is limited to the boating, bicycle, and electric trams, which propels pedestrian or users to and fro the space, which is also liable for expansion. If in the case, green canopies or all trees are actually identified as green canopies in order to reduce or regulate the temperature around the region during hot climates, and also in order to reduce harsh winds during the cold climate. So it's seasonal friendly, in my opinion. And in terms of artificial wetlands, all rain collecting water system from existing buildings around the system or proposed building around the system are channeled through wetlands, and the wetlands are channeled into artificial living streams, whereby it accommodates water life, such as aquatic habitats and all. So this is basically the sections of the land, of the space rather. You can see the rainwater collector system based at different pockets. This is just a section. There are actually different pockets of rainwater collection. The proposed buildings or the existing building placed along the line, the topography of the land, and all buildings are limited to 3 floors so as to keep the image of the space relevant, as it is a botanical public space and not a commercial region, as developers are quite relentless in transforming anything into a industrialized zone. So what again, and then basically the section of rainwater collection, and then it's the mapping area, or the blown out area, is actually the industrialized area converted into a commercialized area, whereby it's regenerates commercial and economic activities along the area. And then in terms of educational building, commercial building, maybe banks, schools, or anything along the region, which could also help in attracting tourism and all others. So like I mentioned, the green canopies and all, and the river, it's quite unique, and this project is actually has a flexibility ratio of expansion. So however the river plans on or around the government plan on expanding the river, it doesn't really takes the identity of the project as its nature. It's quite evolving according to the system. So thank you for listening. I hope this project is going to really help. It might be reformed or let me say reviewed in so many occasions, but I hope this is quite a unique start for something, or for a way of retaining or keeping the two zones together in the European part of Istanbul. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.